Welcome back to In the Den, your inside look at the Fresno Grizzlies and a guy who has been synonymous with Grizzlies baseball since the Colorado Rockies came to Fresno, Steve Soliz.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always nice to be back at the Chuck.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you've been full-time with the Grizzlies since the Rockies came to be an affiliate here. Is it a little bit different first time back, not being the manager, not being the bench coach?
It's not a little bit different. It's a lot different. It's basically as a catching coordinator now, you're kind of focused narrowly on just one position. So as a manager, you start thinking about the game the night before, the morning you wake up, go to breakfast, and I'm probably walking in the stadium at 11 o'clock in the morning as a manager. Now, as a visitor, so to speak, and a catching coordinator, I rolled in the field today at 12. Not a worry in the world. I know what my two drills I'm going to do with the catches are, and enjoy a baseball game without, I shouldn't say without thought, but without the in-depth thought that I would have as a manager.
Maybe without the heart murmurs, right?
Yeah. Actually, 2 days ago, and I don't want to bring up a bad game, but we got beat 17 or it was 17-3 or whatever it was.
Yeah, we'll go.
And I walked over to Cesar Galvez during the game and sat next to him, and I said, "Hey, these are the games that keep you up at night, huh?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "Yeah, these are the games as they're happening. You're thinking about tomorrow and the next day with your pitching. How am I going to get through this?" So the heart murmurs, all that stuff. Yeah, it's those games that keep you up at night. The good, close ones, the hard-fought battles where you either win or lose, but the game's tight. Those are what you live for.
Well, talk about, say sorry a little bit. You had him as your bench coach last couple of years, and he's a young guy in his first managerial role. I know you were prepping him in a way last year and trying to equip him with things. Talk about him and just what he brings to the table and how exciting it is to see him.
I have a lot of respect for Cesar. He's grown a lot as a coach. I had him in 2019. Actually, when I managed in Boise, he was my hitting coach. Really young, just right after playing, I believe, for him. And then, like you mentioned, the last 2 years, he was my bench coach here. So from a mentorship, just watching him grow as a coach, a young coach, hard worker, tireless worker. You're not going to outwork him. He really knows the game and understands the game from an infielder's perspective. A lot of what I threw at him last year was, hey, let's start looking at this game from a pitching and catching perspective, because there's one area of the game as a manager you want to keep your eye on and thumb on. It's pitching and catching, right? So when to make a move, when a guy's done, when he's not done, and that kind of thing. So he's evolving, as any manager was. I was told this a long time ago, and it's 100% true. You watch the game from the dugout, whether you're a bench coach, hitting coach, any auxiliary outlier, coach, and it's a different game, because you're just looking at your area. But when you're a manager, when the card is in your back pocket, the whole game changes. So, in that respect, he's growing. And last year when they asked if I thought he was ready, and I said, hey, from a work perspective, knowledge of the game, interaction with the players, he's ready. He's ready for this, for the challenge. He's growing as it relates to in-game and stuff like that, because like I said, this game can get pretty quick.
Yeah.
If you don't have just the experience, you don't know what you don't know, and he's learning that as we go. But I was with the team in early April, and again this week, and from the short time that I've seen him, he's definitely growing.
Well, and it's been fun to watch that. I think it's also a full circle thing, right? Because you look at a guy that you kind of helped get into the coaching ranks and settle in, but you have been replaced, so to speak, as he moved up to the manager role. His bench coach is a guy who you played for, Dave Keller.
Oh, yeah. That way, I talk about a full circle, awkward, however you want to put it, moment. This offseason, as now I'm, in a catching coordinator role, so it was asked upon all of us coordinators to call and interview prospective bench coaches, for Fresno. And his name came across my phone, and I go, I'm going to interview Dave Keller, who was my manager 2-3 years in minor league baseball. I said, so it was a fun, neat, awkward, full circle moment. But I have a lot of respect for Dave. He's been around this game for a long time. He was a big part of forming, who I was as a not only a player, but just how I prepared and what I've become as a coach now. And you and I were just talking about the preparation. So he was a very influential in laying that groundwork as to giving me the discipline to handle the day-to-day.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's cool. And then you add in one holdover from your staff last year came in the second half, Jerry Sullivan, and he was in indie ball, and Mike says Mark, obviously he had pitched in the California League, but watching what the pitching staff has done, right? They've kind of gotten better every month. They had a stellar month of May. You talked about how pitching and catching go together, but every single pitcher raves about what Jerry Sullivan is doing with them. What do you see from a young coach like that?
Jerry, young. You mentioned I was going to talk about it. Jerry's young in what I would say he's young in experience as far as being in the dugout and being, with the day to day. You mentioned indie ball, but he's not young as it relates to his intellect, his ability to create relationships, his ability to deliver a message. He can get a point across to an American player just like he would a Latin player. So he's very, very good, and he's very seasoned in that respect. So when you say young coach, there are young coaches because they're just inexperienced in coaching or time. And Jerry just has limited time doing the job, but not his experience as a leader and a mentor is far from inexperienced and young. He's doing a great job. We were just talking down there about different forms of teaching, and we're saying there are levels to development, and what we've found and what him and I believe, and I think this is why we hit it off. So why I believe he's a good coach is when you lay a foundation of the basic fundamental, right? The basics, whatever position in his respect is pitching, but when you lay a basic foundation for anything, whatever fundamental we're doing out here, the accelerated curve on how good a guy gets quickly, it's accelerated. When you don't address the basic fundamentals and you're kind of just wishy-washy, I always say you're a feather in the wind, kind of just getting blown wherever the wind's taking you. Sure, you might get better quickly, but there's always a regression involved with that. So Jerry has a very, very firm grasp of the basic fundamentals of pitching as it relates to delivery, pitch usage, like what we can bring into a game as far as pitch selection. He's got a very good grasp of the basic fundamentals there, and these kids are benefiting from it. You mentioned month over month they're getting better because it's a gradual increase in what they're doing.
Well, and because of that improvement, I think it's very obvious you've left this coaching staff, you've left these players in good hands, and I think the fans appreciate that. But I also know that you left a big mark when you were here, and people really value you within this.
Depends on who you talk to.
And the community, both of those.
Yeah.
What do you miss about Fresno?
I miss a lot. It's funny when you're here for 4 years, and you like you said, you just get so engulfed in what you're doing, player development. I golf a lot, so I've been golfing here. But then you come back. I landed on the plane. I got my rental car, driving to the stadium, and I'm like, just all these memories come back. Stuff that I hate to say, I don't like to take anything for granted, but just the guy at the front, opening the gate, the big hello, the smile you see on everybody's face. And, I walk in here and you two guys, I see you guys for the first time. I saw Julian Banda, the visiting clubby, who, I always saw every day, but I got a hug and it was a little extra tight. And so little things like that mean a lot. Outside of the field, I made it a point yesterday to go to Uncle Harry's because I love my bagels. I went to Uncle Harry's. This morning I went with another good friend, Dan Taylor. We went to Batter Up Pancakes. So
there you go.
I'm hitting all the spots that I normally would. But I miss the people, the fans. There's a group of fans that come sit over the first or third base dugout that I saw yesterday. Gave them a wave. So just all the familiar faces. On field, off the field, I really grew to enjoy and love Fresno, and I'm happy to be back.
I was going to ask you about food spots, so you jumped the spot there. I think that's great. You talked about moments. Is there anything that aside from the nostalgic, the day-to-day of the job, but in terms of the uniqueness of the Grizzlies in Fresno, we do the tacos, we do the low riders, obviously 4th of July. Is there any of those moments over the 4 years that you were here that stand out?
Well, I think, what you're talking about 4th of July, we just did a little promo shot on that. First of all, the front office here, it's second to none. Like whether it's, and the first thing I can think about is my first, induction into, just meeting with Bailey or Derek, and they were like, hey, there used to be in AAA ballpark here, a AAA team, And he's like, hey, I know we're A-ball now, but we're going to treat it as if it was AAA. And they've hit the ground running. So I do appreciate all the perks, the day-to-day, you know, of how they treat not just coaching staff, players, but the auxiliary staff. It's a great environment to be in. So when you talk about just memories, it's just, you know, just walking in the door and sitting in my well, what used to be my manager's seat, and just having everyone walk in and just having that relation to know that, hey, we all in our own special way are doing our part to keep this thing moving forward and put a good product on the field. And because of that, we've had a couple good years, and we didn't make the playoffs the last couple of years, but we've had a good in terms of wins and losses, and fans seem to enjoy themselves. And like I said, I do, you know, we're talking about food. David, the grounds crew, is absolutely one of the best cooks around. So I do miss those Friday nights. He's like, hey, I'm cooking, and the game would be over. We'd shower up and we'd go hang out in his garage with all the you know, the equipment he uses to keep this field in a great spot. And we'd have, you know, have some tacos and stuff. And and the best way I could put it is, you know, it's a work, but it's like family, you know, it's like your work family. And so those are the things, you know, I remember and I miss. But I also, you know, as we get back on the field, I miss the times of, you know, we had a team a couple years ago, I think it was 23, that was kind of hemming and hawing around 500, and we weren't sure, you know, how good we were going to be. And I said, guys, as sure as I'm standing here, you keep with this program that we're doing, you keep the discipline, show up every day, we're going to take off. And that team ended up, I don't know, close to 30 games over 500. So although we didn't make the playoffs, it was a successful season. So those little things I miss, along with all the stuff off the field.
Well, you say that, and just one update on your role with the Rockies. You said you're catching coordinator, catching instructor. You enjoying that right now?
Absolutely. You know, it's what I've done prior to managing. You know, I was with all my years with the Angels, I was the bullpen coach, but I always did catching. So I was always catching and information. So that was kind of like my home, you know, the behind the plate. That's what I did as a player, and it's what my, you know, area of quote unquote expertise would be as a coach. Then, you know, I went on to manage, and I love that too. It's a different challenge. But back, full circle moment, back to being the catching coordinator, it's a different excitement. You know, like when you come as a manager, you get a thrill in saying, like, how can I keep this ship sailing in the right direction, whether I, you know, utilizing your coaches. And so there's an excitement in that, you know, the excitement in the game and how we can manage a game. This is a different type of excitement. You come, you get to work hands-on with a couple players. You get to watch them play in a game and kind of, so to speak, as much as I can, you know, just zero in on home plate. You know, I'm just watching. So the celebrating the little successes that they have, you know, whether it be just, you know, learning how to get outside a ball and bring it back down plate to receive and keep a strike, or sometimes, you know, make a ball a strike. You see that. Yesterday we had a, you know, a pop-up that, you know, we're going to do some pop-up prior today, but just talking through the mechanics of each fundamental where we play as the play pop-ups, and then you go out and watch them play a game and they actually do it. So there's an excitement in that. So love what I'm doing. Love that I'm back home, you know, doing the catching, and more so, you know, personally speaking, the job, you know, I travel twice a month as opposed to being here all the time.
Sure.
It's allowing me to be a dad at home. I got a little 8-year-old little girl. I get to see her more. I was just in Rhode Island to watch her do her gymnastics nationals event. I was in Palm Springs, watch her dance. These are things that I never would have been able to do before. So I'm grateful for the opportunity, to get back to my home, so to speak, catching, but then also be able to be a dad for my little girl. So it's been a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would think I speak for a lot of people when I say we're grateful for the impact that you've had on the Grizzlies and the Rockies organization and just here in Fresno. And I'm grateful for your time today.
Oh, I appreciate it. Now, you know what? I'm equally as grateful for the impact that Fresno and the Grizzlies has had on me. So that goes without saying. I mean, I wanted to go without, you know, without being unnoticed, because I do appreciate the environment that's here, and then walking in and seeing somebody, like you said, you know, you leave a mark or whatever, but see the effect that either you had or realize the effect that the people around here have had on me. So I'm grateful as well.
Well, we're glad to have you, Steve Soliz.